Welcome to the old history. No swords drawn, no battle cries, only the sound of hooves and the knock at a wooden door in a Balkan village. They weren't there for gold or tribute. They were there for you. For over 6 centuries, the Ottoman Empire stretched across 3 continents, an empire of marble domes, golden palaces, and armies that shook the world. But beneath the brilliance of its architecture and the genius of its sultans lay a system built on silence, obedience, and loss, the Devshirme, the blood tax. Every few years, imperial officials swept through Christian villages across the Balkans and Anatolia. Their mission was simple: to collect boys for the service of the Sultan. Some would become bureaucrats, others, elite warriors, the Janissaries, but all of them would lose everything they once were. The Devshirme system began in the 14th century under Sultan Murad I. It was designed not as an act of cruelty, but as a mechanism of control, a way to build a loyal army that owed allegiance to no family, no tribe, no faith, only the Sultan. Young boys, often between the ages of 8 and 16, were taken from their families, usually from Christian communities in modern-day Greece, Serbia, Albania, and Bulgaria. They were chosen carefully, strong, intelligent, healthy. They were the empire's most valuable resource. Upon arrival, they were converted to Islam, given new names, and forbidden from speaking their native tongue. To the empire, they weren't captives. They were being reborn. Imagine the sound of hundreds of boys marching in silence, bare feet striking cold stone, each step pulling them further from the lives they once knew. Training began in the end-run schools of the palace. Days were filled with language lessons, religious instruction, and physical drills that pushed the body to exhaustion. The weak were dismissed, the defiant were broken, the obedient were rewarded. Discipline was absolute. They slept, ate, and prayed together, forging bonds stronger than blood. The empire was rebuilding their identities, shaping them into tools of its will. From these ranks emerged the Janissaries, the most feared soldiers of their age. They carried the empire's banners into Europe and the Middle East, fighting with a fanatic devotion that stunned their enemies. On the battlefield, the Janissary Corps was a machine of precision. They were the first standing army of the early modern world, paid, trained, and loyal, not to a lord or province, but to a single man, the Sultan. Their discipline was legendary. They stood shoulder to shoulder under cannon fire, their rifles blazing in perfect rhythm. They were the backbone of Ottoman victories at Constantinople in 1453, at Mohacs, and beyond. But loyalty came at a price. They could not marry. They could not own property. Their only family was the empire itself. The very system that raised them as brothers also made them strangers to the world they conquered. Imagine being that boy torn from your home, taught to forget your name, and told that the man who took you is now your father. You rise through the ranks, win battles, earn titles, yet inside, a quiet voice still whispers your forgotten mother's prayers. Some Janissaries found pride in their new identity, believing they served a destiny greater than themselves. Others lived haunted lives, caught between 2 worlds, Christian by birth, Muslim by faith, loyal to neither, bound to both. It was more than a military system. It was psychological alchemy, turning grief into loyalty, loss into strength. For centuries, the Janissaries stood unchallenged warriors, scholars, statesmen, but the world changed. Gunpowder, nationalism, and modernization turned the empire's finest soldiers into an obstacle to progress. They had become too powerful, influencing politics, assassinating sultans, and resisting reform. In 1826, Sultan Mahmud II made a fateful decision. The Janissaries rebelled, and the Sultan responded with cannon fire. Thousands were slaughtered in the streets of Constantinople. The very institution that had built the empire was destroyed by the empire itself. The auspicious incident, they called it. For the Sultan, it was victory. For history, it was tragedy. Today, traces of the Devshirme system still echo in the bloodlines of nations once under Ottoman rule. Family legends whisper of ancestors who vanished boys taken under the blood tax. The Janissaries' legacy lives on in the concept of professional armies, in state schools, even in the idea that identity can be shaped by power. But their story raises a darker question. How much of ourselves can be taken before we cease to be who we are? They were warriors, servants, victims, and symbols of how empires remake the souls of men. Before the empire fell, before the banners burned, there were still mothers waiting in mountain villages, watching the horizon, hoping to see their sons return. None ever did.